I'm going to tell you about my most recent love affair. That's right, night after passionate night, curled together, listening to their sweet whispers and laughter, and downing bowls of ice cream as I watch Dimension 20.
Welcome, one and all, to Dimension 20.
Dimension 20 is an actual play show wherein a host of current and former college humor cast members get together and play Dungeons & Dragons, hosted by the incredibly talented and far too good for this world Brennan Lee Mulligan. Each season of the show takes place in a different setting, from a fantasy high school to a riff on Lord of the Rings to a magical New York City, and run the gambit from 6-episode side quests to 20-episode main quests, though with the episodes averaging a length of around 2 hours each. No matter where you drop in, any given season is a time sink, and boy have I sunk my time into this show. And look, I'm not going to lie, this video is mostly just going to be me gushing about a thing I like. This isn't an overly ambitious or intellectual production on my part. I just want to share my love for a thing that I think is cool, and I can't promise that the reasons for my love go any deeper than haha people funny or wow story good, but come on, man, I'm allowed to just gush, okay? I'm allowed to do that! But before we get into the show proper, you've got to understand a little something about me. I have virtually zero experience with tabletop role-playing games. I've never played one myself, with the exception of a very brief and failed attempt at a text chat-based one, and aside from that, I've only ever experienced, I think, do you remember that old, sadly fallen video producer, Spoonie? He had a series of videos where he would tell tales of his tabletop days, and those were fun, I guess. And then, do you remember the time Will Wheaton hosted an actual play show? I know I watched it, but I remember absolutely nothing about it, which is kind of wild. It was a whole production and everything, but yeah, all of that is to say, prior to engaging with Dimension 20, I had only the vaguest notions about what a Dungeons & Dragons was, much less its appeal. But now that I've dived deep into this one show, I'm like, oh, I get it now. But let's save any lessons learned for the end, shall we? So what I want to do here is just talk about a bunch of my favorite moments from this show and talk about how it all works together and what parts contribute to the whole and whatnot. And I also want to make sure to highlight the contributions of each cast member, so what we're going to do now is go and run through one great moment with each of these intrepid heroes, starting with Lou Wilson.
First in the initiative order is Fabian. What does Fabian do?
I vault onto the table and
Go ahead and make an acrobatics check if you'd like. Is that a natural one?
That's a natural one. I'm tired, all right?
You leap forward and fucking trip and face plant in the rows in between the tables.
I mean, it happens to. I mean, the tables are so high here. I'm a runner. I'm not a jumper. Okay.
Lou Wilson is the hype man. He always seems to play characters that have their own brand of bombast.
I get up, polish myself off, then I make sure everyone's washing, and I go to vault this other table to get to that corner.
What do you say as you're about to vault?
Everyone, look, I'm good.
And it's through this overwhelming energy that he's actually able to drive forward many of the show's narrative beats, the most infamous incident of which has to be, of course, his character Fabian's little visit to the floating pirate city of Leviathan. The setup here is that Fabian Arameus Seacaster is a half-elf, born from mother High Elf Hilariel and father pirate Bill Seacaster. Bill, by the way, is one of Fantasy High's most crazed characters, but also his loving relationship with his son is just, mwah, chef's kiss, relationship goals. The way Lou says papa when talking to Bill is ingrained in my soul.
Papa. Yes, Papa. Papa. Fantastic, Papa. Thanks, Papa.
Anyway, in sophomore year, aka Fantasy High Season 2, as part of the group's larger quest, Fabian suggests they all head to Leviathan, a floating pirate city, and thinks things will be fine because, of course, he, the son of famous pirate Bill Seacaster, will fit in just fine with all the pirates, right? Wrong. Long story short, Fabian runs into basically a cult that worships his father, so all the cultists are bloody ecstatic at the arrival of the son of Bill Seacaster, pledging to follow him and fight for him and whatnot, and Fabian likes that. Fabian likes that very much. Pride in his father, pride in himself as his father's son, pride in himself as a fighter and a leader, all of that mixed into some massive ego trip as he takes charge of this cult. And while all of that's going down, while on Leviathan he and the main group run into this asshole, Captain James Whitclaw. Now, Whitclaw's an old enemy of Bill's, and that hatred of course extends to Fabian, and he's looking to massively upend the order that Bill had established on Leviathan, and Fabian ain't gonna stand for that. One night Fabian goes out on his own, away from the rest of the party, finds himself in a meeting with the Seacaster cultists who all pledge themselves to him, and right as that happens, Captain Whitclaw and his crew walk on by outside, and then Fabian, in the spur of the moment, gives his cult of warlocks this order.
All right, everyone, follow me. We're gonna jump on him and we're gonna murder him.
R.I.P. Fabian.
And if it wasn't obvious from everyone's reactions, that was a very bad idea. And maybe if Whitclaw was a normal-ass guy, that might have worked, but Whitclaw was not a normal-ass guy. Whitclaw's a mind flayer. In other words, some very scary, Lovecraftian nightmare person who wields extraordinary power. And to put it bluntly, he fucks Fabian's shit up. All but a few of the cultists are brutally murdered, and Fabian is very nearly killed and certainly scarred for life, setting the stage for his development throughout the rest of the season from a brazen and overconfident fighter to a more supportive and thoughtful, dancing fighter. And all of that comes from this one moment, this one decision. The decision to charge. It was a very stupid decision on the part of Fabian, and a very in-character decision on the part of Lou. And it's excellent in the moment because it's one of those moments where the lines between player and character blur. Ask yourself, right here, who is screaming and why? Is this Fabian screaming in the excitement of the moment, psyching himself and his crew up for the battle ahead? Or is this Lou absolutely losing his goddamn mind because he knows he's running straight into a death trap and cannot process it? Perhaps it's something in between, elements of both mixing to provide this wonderful, insane moment.
Are you laughing about how you're about to die?
Yeah.
Go ahead, go get anyone.
Lou has fully fucking lost.
It's in me.
Whatever the case, this raw screaming sells the moment as one of pride-begetting horror, and rather than anything specific to Dungeons & Dragons, I think this moment reflects general good storytelling practice. Many great stories are driven simply by characters making decisions and following the consequences of those decisions, and here, Lou and Brennan stayed true to that decision. Fabian was in a situation where Lou could have made a smart choice and had him get out of there, but he knew that wasn't the choice Fabian would make, and so he had Fabian make the Fabian choice, and Brennan followed through with all of the horrific consequences that entailed, in so doing creating one of sophomore year's most exciting moments.
You did this as a bit and now you're stuck.
No, this is not a bit. I'm fully in character. This is what I believe Fabian would
Don't these
do.
warlocks suck? Like,
Fabian does think that he rules though.
Yeah.
You guys, do you guys do anything before she finishes?
do you think there's any like little like caramel chickens or anything?
Sure, yeah.
I take one and I just snap it.
Oh no!
Oh my god.
And for temp HP.
You're for temp HP, great. You suck the fucking life out of this caramel chicken.
Zach Oyama is often the quietest player, even understated. He frequently plays himbos, just really pleasant, strong guys who maybe aren't the sharpest tools in the shed or even all that outspoken, but are definitely great at cuddling. That's all to say that you never expect too much excitement to come from his direction, which only makes it all that more incredible when he does do something wild. When Zach shines, the light is blinding. One of my favorite Zach himbo moments comes in Chapter 2 of The Unsleeping City. Up until this point, his character, Riki Matsui, has just been the perfect guy. He's a totally ripped fireman who everyone knows as being on a sexy calendar, and he's so nice and supportive to everyone and loves keeping people safe. He's all about safety, and the only thing he thinks is not perfect about himself is that he once attended high school.
If we're all admitting secrets, I wasn't always a firefighter.
Okay, there's no way this is.
I was in high school, and then after high school, I became a
That's not a
firefighter.
secret. That's just a normal life.
You live, is what you're
Like,
saying.
Firefighter,
and then
or are you
firefighter.
leaving something else
I'm
out?
community college for a year and a half.
In other words, what a perfect, darling man. And then Chapter 2 happens, and Ricky gets challenged. At the end of the first season, he gave up his sort of mystical weapon called the Questing Blade, so it could be used by someone who needed it more, and that was supposed to be the end of that. Chapter 2 sees the introduction of a new player character, Cody, who is just a total lost cause, an edgy goth dweeb who immediately sells his soul to a devil. He's just a lot to handle, but Ricky's trying to be there for him, trying to be a good role model and stuff like the perfect man he is. And then Emily's character, Sophia, comes into possession of the Questing Blade, goes to return it to Ricky, and
The Questing Blade, he goes, "Whosoever be most worthy of the Questing Blade shall wield the power of a true champion." It erupts into a twisted and barbed double-handed greatsword and shoots into Cody's hands.
Cody's hands?
Yes!
What?
Yes, dude!
What?
And Ricky clearly does not know how to handle this. The perfect man who's never had anything go wrong for him has suddenly been denied in over-the-top, glorious fashion, something that he didn't even realize was important to him until it was too late.
First off, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy. And I'm just wanting to be clear about that.
Yeah.
Because that's true, and that's how I feel.
And Zach and Emily managed to tap into Ricky's newfound anger and communicate it in the most hilarious way possible.
Yeah, can you go ahead and cast silence on me?
I cast silence.
That right there, that silent scream, that absence of sound, absolutely killed me when I first saw it. It both plays into and subverts Zach's penchant for understatement, a quiet yet extreme reaction for a character who's always been the exact opposite of extreme. This show can find comedy in the most bizarre of drama, and that is just one of many examples.
I cast silence again, and then we both.
Incredible!
So
Go ahead and roll that little pyramid thing.
So this only? Okay, cool.
Oh my goodness.
Where did you go? Did you?
That's
Okay.
gone. That's
What?
gone forever.
What the fuck just happened?
That was
I'm sorry.
That was your
I
U-turn.
wore a
That was
sweater.
Allie Beardsley is a bit too good at playing the gay disaster. With them, there's something to be said about art reflecting life and whatnot. Their first two characters, Kristen Applebee's from Fantasy High and Pete Conlon from The Unsleeping City, seem to draw parallels to Allie's personal life, at least near so far as I can tell from what they've discussed of it in the whole extended college humor cinematic universe. Subscribe to Dropout today! Quick sidebar, I'm not actually being facetious here. I'm obviously not sponsored or anything. Due to the whole situation where college humor got defunded, I actually do believe that subscribing to Dropout is a moral good. I'm subscribed myself, and I even went to the store and got this cute little sticker. Isn't it adorable? So, yeah. Anyway, going a bit further with Allie's characters, I think there's something to be said about how art can often be a form of very personal self-expression and how this sort of role-playing storytelling can allow someone to explore facets of themselves in a more safe and comfortable space than perhaps would otherwise be possible. Of all the wild characters in Dimension 20, Kristen and Pete feel the most real, and I think it's wonderful how this silly D&D show has seemingly allowed this queer individual to so fully and comfortably explore express themselves. But also, I'm not here to psychoanalyze real people on the internet like I'm any sort of expert on psychology. I'm not about to pretend I have any sort of intimate understanding of these people I've never met. What a parasocial nightmare that would be. I just thought it worth mentioning how queer-friendly the show is. So, instead, let's talk about how Allie most literally contributes to the games with their famous Nat 20s. And now's the part where I get to explain the rules of a game I've never played to a bunch of people who have a decent chance of already knowing what I'm talking about. Fun! So for those not in the know, a Nat 20, short for a natural 20, literally refers to a roll on a 20-sided dice or a d20 that comes up as a 20. I'm going to be saying 20 a lot, aren't I? Dungeons & Dragons is a dice-based game, and in general, higher rolls equals better for you. In-game, players will often roll a d20 as part of an attack or skill check and add that roll to a modifier from their character sheet to see how well their character did at whatever action in-game. But obviously, every time they roll that d20, there's a 1 in 20 chance that it's going to come up as a 20. And when it does, that's an automatic or critical success. Whatever action they were taking, they succeed at, and something extra special might happen because of that good roll. And that means that whenever there's a roll, there's always a chance of something exciting happening.
I'm gonna need you to make an acrobatics check. You need to beat a Nat 20.
I'm gonna go. You don't need me here, right? I'm
See it,
trapped
dude.
in a video game. All right, here we go. All the way up to a Nat 20.
But of the 6 core players, the one most famous for their Nat 20s is Allie Beardsley, no contest. Allie has a fucking supernatural talent for rolling Nat 20s exactly when they need to, at critical story junctures and especially during season finales where not rolling that exact roll might have been very, very bad. It's all to the point where the Allie Beardsley Nat 20 has become sort of a myth, a point of exaggerated consternation for Brennan, and I think that's best exemplified by the rare but just as important early season Nat 20 from Chapter 2 of The Unsleeping City. And this particular Nat 20, while maybe not the most immediately exciting, does show off Allie's habit of completely flipping the game on its head with just a flick of the wrist. The setup is as follows. Allie's character Pete is the Vox Phantasma of New York City. Basically, he's the guardian of the city's dreamscape. One night, he's walking around the dream version of New York when he spots this silhouette, and he doesn't like the silhouette. It's giving off bad vibes. It's been appearing sporadically throughout a couple of episodes, and Pete, being the Vox Phantasma, has been noticing things going awry within the dream, and then there's that creepy silhouette just standing there, and he is not having it. So Pete decides to charge at the thing to banish it. Brennan asks for a wisdom saving throw for some reason. Allie goes,
Nat 20.
because of course they do. But then Brennan's all like,
Fuck
You!
which is a bit of a strange reaction, even for him. And it's only when he starts explaining himself that we truly understand the significance of that roll.
Allie, I'm gonna be real with you. If you had rolled a 19, you'd be fucking dead. When you reach out to banish this thing, it flinches in the way that a great white shark flinches when punched in the nose. Pete realizes, I just did the bravest thing I've ever done. It's the thing of like, oh, I did a skate trick. Oh God, I didn't realize I was doing it from one skyscraper to another. Like, yes, that was an ollie, but I didn't realize that I was doing, like, I didn't realize what the stakes were in that moment, right?
So that's a lot that just went down there, but what's important to note is how that extremely lucky roll was both incredibly exciting in the moment and completely changed the course of the game, supposedly. As much as some might protest otherwise, being so heavily reliant on the rolls of dice, Dungeons & Dragons is, at the end of the day, at least partially reliant on luck. The dice bring in elements of unpredictability and chance to every encounter, and the entire course of the narrative can be changed on a complete whim.
And then I just had to rewrite the rest of the campaign to accommodate that, some cards got shuffled around.
With traditional storytelling, there's always going to be at least some awareness on the consumer's part, however minute, that every beat in action in the story is authored, predetermined. There was someone behind the scenes making these choices with specific intent, and if you can learn to read that intent, you just might have some idea of where the story's going ahead of time, which is fine and normal. Of course, nothing wrong about that. But that is one very important way in which the D&D brand of storytelling is so unlike anything else you can experience, because as much as the Dungeon Master can plan ahead, as much as the players can try to make smart choices, there's always a very real chance that the dice will have entirely different plans. Both for players and for viewers, it's an additional level of excitement that you're just not going to get elsewhere. And that Allie always seems to facilitate such wildness is, well, that's Allie.
Go ahead and give me an intimidation check with advantage.
Hell yeah. 20, not 20. I was not looking at that.
You have to stop rolling nat 20s. You have to stop this. It's every season.
Fuck off, Carradine.
So it's early in the morning. I assume you've been up all night working your case.
I've got my board that just has the missing girls all just pointed at the school, and that's all I have. And I'm just...
That's so creepy to have in a little boy's room.
I just have a board of missing girls.
He's trying to find them.
Whatever, creep.
Yeah, whatever.
You're not here. You're not here. None of you are here.
Brian Murphy, aka Murph, as a player is probably the closest thing the group has to a straight man, except for when he's playing the exact opposite.
And I pull out the Buster Sword.
Immediately behind you, you hear whoop whoop, and you see. Do we think Cody has a like a permit for this replica Buster Sword?
No! Absolutely not.
The cops fully jack this sword.
You said I couldn't have the fucking blade sword. This one's different.
Being a fellow dungeon master with his own actual play show on the side, he always seems to play characters invested in pushing the narrative forward one way or the other, from Riz Gukgak solving the mystery of the disappearing girls in Fantasy High, to Cody Walsh constantly pushing the group to see how evil Amazon, the Gladiator, is in The Unsleeping City Chapter 2. But I want to talk about funny stuff. So let's talk about one of my favorite funny Murph moments from A Crown of Candy. This one requires some metatextual context that is beyond the scope of just that season. At some point or another before then, each of the players has gotten one of their characters involved with an NPC, a non-player character, romantically. Between 2 seasons of Fantasy High, Emily, Allie, and Zach's characters all get hooked up with someone, and in The Unsleeping City, Lou's character has an ex-wife with whom he has some really intense and involved conversations, and Siobhan's character, well, she's gotten around. So by the time we're deep into A Crown of Candy, the only one who hasn't gotten his kisses in, as it were, is Murph. And the group phrases it like this.
I've managed to flirt with everybody else. Murph was the last holdout.
So it was pretty much a stated goal that in A Crown of Candy, Murph's character, Sir Theobald Gumbar, has to get slammed down big style, and they go about doing it in a very on-brand way. Textually, the happenings around the event in question are as follows. Theo is having a conversation with a woman named Gooey, a distrustful bodyguard and advisor to one of the group's newest allies. The confrontation gets rather heated, and, well...
You're a real soft, squishy little bear.
Yeah, I'm the squishiest, and I hear the queen likes some squishy.
Yeah, real squishy.
I'm a squishy bear.
I bet a little axe would have no problem getting into that soft little tum-tum.
Yeah, probably wouldn't. What are you gonna do about it, huh?
Oh, yeah,
you take
that armor off sometime, you
I
little...
might.
You see that there's a pause? There's a pause, and she goes,
Are we gonna fuck? Are we gonna fuck?
That would be inappropriate, but...
Yeah, I know, that's what makes it good.
So yeah, that happened, and while this is ultimately a small moment in the grand scheme of things, I think it's indicative of both Murph's penchant for team awareness, his ability to read the table and mood and keep things going in a direction everyone's on board with, and the wider group's comfort and trust in one another. Ultimately, that moment shows just how comfortable this group of players has grown with each other over the course of the hours and hours of games they've played together. That's not a conversation you have with a stranger, right? Even in the context of a game, you've got to be aware of everyone's boundaries so as to not go too far and make other people uncomfortable. And these people are demonstrably comfortable enough with each other that they can just get up to some wild shit together and be totally okay.
Everyone here is insane. Breaks the neck of a chicken.
And if nothing else, that sort of dynamic creates a comfortable, warm, and inviting atmosphere that makes the show just very comfortable to snuggle up with.
An intimidation match that gets too hot for everybody is so fucking funny.
And Theo, to him, just being like the most amenable person is like intimidating, being like, yeah, I'm more subservient than you are. I bet you I could dominate you. I bet you could.
I bet you fucking could.
There was a mean trick with the vomit and all that. I don't ever cast spells at you.
Yes, you do, all the time.
Well, mine are always funnier.
I cast Tasha's hideous laughter on them. My only game in going to this school, to find a group of people to destroy your fucking life.
I'm sure you will. You're going to join one of those little arcane secret societies. Go, ooh.
I punch her in the face.
Go ahead and make an attack roll.
Did you use up all your spell slots on your sister?
Siobhan Thompson provides a lot of the emotional weight of Dimension 20. Of the several times that Dimension 20 has brought me to tears, Siobhan has been at the center of most of them. And that's not to say she's only good for forcing tears. She's got comedic chops just like the rest. She's generally more understated in that department than the rest, true, but when she goes for it, like... oof. Like that one bit in the premiere of sophomore year, they had a conversation early on where they just casually mentioned how magic is real.
Dreams are always significant because in this world, magic is real.
And then later on, they have the famous introduction of Boggy the Froggy, where she does the genius play of bringing it all full circle.
You see that as Boggy jumps, again, Boggy is not a real frog. Boggy is a magic frog. When he jumps...
He's so real, how dare you. Magic is real and so is my frog.
And that's funnily enough a good example of the comedy of the series, how the cast are all able to take one-off bits and spontaneously build upon them as the show progresses. They've all got improv training, and boy does it show. But aside from that, yeah, Siobhan's good at making me cry, and the easiest example of that comes toward the end of sophomore year. Throughout season 1 of Fantasy High, her character, the elven mage Adine Abenant, has an adversarial relationship with her whole family and especially her sister Aelwyn. She's in the rebellious teen phase, much like Fig, who we'll get to, but unlike Fig, whose parents never stopped loving her, there's a distinct lack of affection in Adine's household. In other words, she's always feeling a more constant and present pressure. Her parents constantly make her feel inferior to her perfect older sister, and she's unable to see Aelwyn as anything other than a bully who deserves no end of scorn and spite. Season 1 ends with her having escaped her family and her sister carted off to jail, which is fine enough for Adine, but then sophomore year rolls around and the real shit goes down. About halfway through the campaign, Adine gets kidnapped by her father and a group of elves and is imprisoned in some tower, and as it happens, she's locked up in the room right next to where Aelwyn has also been imprisoned. And to her horror, she finds that Aelwyn, with full approval from their father, is being tortured, has been so for months and months. She's a broken shell of her former self, and when Adine arrives, she becomes the closest thing to a friendly face in Aelwyn's whole ragged existence. And at that point, Adine finally starts to see her sister's humanity. Elvinity, personhood, you know what I mean. Anyway, one jailbreak later, Adine is essentially doing a mind meld with Aelwyn to help her recover and going through her memories, shared memories of their childhood and the abuses they suffered at the hands of uncaring parents. And while Adine could only ever see her own suffering and her sister's compliance before, viewing it all from Aelwyn's perspective, she's finally able to see the pressure her older sister was under to comply and how much it hurt her too. And then, at the center of the labyrinth of memories, Adine comes across a little something, a sort of sphere of Aelwyn's concentrated magic, one last spell of hers that she'd kept hidden away from her captors and torturers despite their months of efforts to find it, and on it is inscribed one little note.
Despite all of the torment and tribulation, let this be proof
I always knew there was only one person clever enough to find this.
In other words, the one person in this world Aelwyn Abernant truly loves and respects, even if she could never show it, is Adaine. Additional heartbreak follows, but then the most important moment with the sisters comes about toward the very end of sophomore year. Aelwyn is being dragged around by the whims of their parents, and Adaine goes to confront her with their father standing over them, urging Aelwyn to do his bidding and help him essentially erase Adaine's mind. And here we see Aelwyn torn between the love and validation she seeks from her parents and the true affection she wants to give and receive from her sister. And from there, well, no words of mine can do justice to the scene that follows.
So I'd like to message Aelwyn and say, what are you doing? You don't like these people any more than I do.
She messages you back, Adaine. I don't like our parents, but I do love them. Don't you?
They don't love me.
Adaine, love is something that has to be earned. It's not something...
No, it's not.
What value does a thing have if it can be freely given?
The greatest value of all. A gift given without ask or want.
I don't understand.
Aelwyn, I don't love our parents. But despite the fact that you have not earned it, I do love you.
Oh, fuck, man. That right there is probably the hardest hitting moment in all of this show for me. It's an impromptu meditation on the nature of love that organically arose as a result of hours of buildup that involved no end of confrontations and hardships. It's a moment that shows just how brilliant Dimension 20 storytelling can be, how it's able to introduce and build these threads with incredible payoffs over many, many hours within its partially improvisational structure, and it also shows off how the cast, when they need to, can really sell these moments with their very real acting chops and drive us to tears. Hats off to Siobhan. Hats off to Brennan. Stop making me cry, this hurts too much. Make me laugh instead, I like that better.
Look, darling, we've all had different lives. I can tell you about, let me tell you about my good friend, John Wilkes Booth. He was a fabulous actor.
That's a big
fabulous.
Drop. Okay. I'll say it wasn't as bad as John Wilkes Booth.
As you're walking along, you see he grabs you and goes,
"In the wrong part of town, Gobby."
I disguise myself as him and I say, stay away.
As him? You disguise yourself as the dwarf doing this? Your first thought to get this guy to stop was to be him? Him as well? Is it just me?
I wanted to be someone of this world, and he's the first person I've really met.
Emily Axford is the group's resident agent of chaos. Her forte is playing loud, outspoken, motivated, rambunctious characters who always make a splash wherever they go. And what's especially important is that she's always experimenting, pushing boundaries, seeing exactly what kind of weird and out there shit she can get away with, all in the name of fun.
That's going to be a 25.
They're superstitious puns.
Listen, Emily is one of the best D&D players in the world, endlessly creative, so fun to play with. She was also sent from hell to kill me. Yes.
A recurring gag with her fantasy high character, Figurath Faith, or just Fig, is her... Okay, this will take some explaining. So, Fig's a tiefling, aka half-devil, half-normal person, but she only learned that fairly recently, which triggered a teen rebellion on her part, one part of which was, I'll kiss whoever the hell I want, and then she also has the disguise self ability, which makes her look like someone else. Put the two together, and what you have is a rebellious, angsty teen tiefling going around and disguising herself as older women to make out with older men. She first seduces a dwarf doctor during the first season, which everyone in the group gets on her case about, but that only makes her dig in deeper. Then sophomore year rolls around, and that's still the source of some gags, so she does it again, this time with a police chief. And here we have the birth of a legendary bit where Emily decides to take things too far and Brennan decides to hold her accountable. The premise, after disguising herself as a detective and seducing the chief, not wanting to be found just yet, but still wanting the chief in her pocket, Fig Fig walks into the police station disguised as an old woman, intending to just drop off a note for the chief with her phone number. She fumbles her way through chatting with the receptionist, and then...
I got it. Well, we should take your information down. What's your name and address?
Hilda.
Hilda. Great. Got a last name, Hilda?
Hilda.
Hilda?
Oh, man.
Great. What's your address, Miss Hilda?
22 Hilda.
22 Hilda? Okay, is that Boulevard or Street? We got two in Bastion City. But your name's Hilda, and you live at 22 Hilda Street and 22 Hilda Boulevard.
And that bit right there, that whole legendary bit is incredible because it encapsulates so much about what makes Dimension 20 work. It's an important narrative stepping stone for Fig, it shows Emily's chaotic energy, and it shows off Brennan's ability to play off his players' antics. Narratively, this moment serves as a sort of unplanned but very necessary wake-up call for Fig. It helps her to realize that her habits are at best unhealthy and at worst could land her in actual serious trouble.
I botched this. I'm gonna have to cross out Runs Buggins. That's one of my love interests.
And it's her first major step down the path that will lead her to finding true love in what is inarguably Dimension 20's finest romance subplot. And then obviously this moment is just the perfect example of Emily's persistent chaotic energy. It's a buck wild idea to start with, and she just keeps escalating it despite it becoming increasingly clear that this is a dead end that she needs to abandon. Emily knows this can't possibly end well, but it's funny, so she keeps going. And then Brennan responds in kind. See, at times the player-DM relationship in Dimension 20 can become a bit playfully antagonistic. They're all friends, and they're confident enough in their friendship that the players feel no qualms about telling Brennan to eat shit when he pulls some nasty shit.
Just listen to it, you sick fuck.
Somebody stop it!
Stop it!
Where's the director?
Stop it! Edit it out.
Some kind of Wizards of the Coast. This is
Someone tabletop him if he drops
what
the
weird
dice. We won't
homebrew
take
bullshit
damage.
is this, you fuck?
But that doesn't mean Brennan has to just sit back and take it. Just as the players push him, he's all too ready to push back. So when Emily decides to take things too far, he takes glee in stopping and making her live with her decisions.
Well, if her numbers change,
I can't get into. I've got to walk my dog.
No, you're in this now. Wait, hang on a second. I'm interested.
And all of that, the show's improvisational narrative moments, Emily's chaotic energy, and Brennan's ability to turn the players' wildest antics into something memorable and meaningful, is not just highlighted, but embodied by that one beautiful moment by Hilda from 22 Hilda Street and 22 Hilda Boulevard.
I'm gonna quick turn into Detective Decker and then run by the window.
Just run by the window? Okay, hold on. You see that the older, sort of like receptionist police officer sees you run by and goes, "Detective Decker!" and vaults over the desk and begins to sprint down the street after you. Wait, Detective Decker!
I get on my skateboard.
Here with our intrepid heroes. Say hi, intrepid heroes.
Fuck you, Brennan.
And also, fuck you, Brennan.
Hey, it's fun. I do a lot of work for this game.
Brennan Lee Mulligan is an incredible storyteller and actor, able to put together intricate worlds and numerous characters and somehow keep it all straight enough in his head to be able to act believably on any of it in the moment. In fact, I'd say he's the master of pulling shit straight out of his ass and making it seem planned and incredible. One of the most famous moments of Brennan's masterful improvisation occurs early in Escape from the Bloodkeep, the first side quest featuring a guest cast. Hey, who's this guy? He's fun. I wonder if he's been in anything else. So, context, Bloodkeep is a riff on the end of The Lord of the Rings, where the concept is basically, what do all of Sauron's minions do right after the ring gets tossed in the lava and he dies?
When my crown is returned, all the peoples of Elna will turn to me and say, fuck, 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 ah!
The group of evil henchmen hit on the idea of forming a new crown in this case, a new crown of evil in order to keep on with the whole evil business. But in order to do that, they need someone capable of forging such an incredible piece of work, and guys like that don't exactly grow on trees. Brennan offhandedly mentions that there was some guy locked up in a forest far away where they can't get to, and fully intends on having them recruit some orcish blacksmiths to do the dirty work, but then Erica pipes up with this delightful bit of fuckery.
Well, you see, I have something where we can be transported via my webs as long as anywhere on this plane, as long as we've touched them before.
Anyway, yes, that's great. We should do that.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Why is that fuckery, you may ask? By Brennan's own admission, he had forgotten that Erica had that ability and had no plans for them to be able to go to that forest.
You guys want me to drop a crazy thing right now?
Yeah.
You were never supposed to find Avinash. And then old Lilith goes, oh, I've got an infinite distance teleportation spell. We can all go. Huh. Well, fuck me. And you fully improvise a place you never intended to go, the things that are there, and an entire character named Avinash that you pull fully out of your butt.
In other words, from that point on, everything that happens in that forest, all the way up until they get back to not Mount Doom to reforge the crown, Brennan is completely pulling out of his ass. He just makes it up as he goes along, and you know what? It is excellent. For being more or less unplanned, it's incredible how he was able to create one of the campaign's most memorable NPCs, seemingly off the cuff.
How are you going to keep my bones?
I beg your pardon, I don't quite
Will
understand.
you keep them, or will the river take them?
Oh,
Can you elaborate?
Sorry, am I being unclear? I'm worried about my bone.
And Bloodkeep as a whole is filled with that sort of improvisation too. One of the other most famous NPCs, an eagle named John Feathers, Brennan had no plans to make him an important character, but Iffy here decided to up and recruit him out of nowhere, and lo and behold, he becomes pretty much everyone's favorite person. And then there's the whole thing about the final battle, which had to be entirely repurposed based on the party making Brennan's plans go completely awry, and it's great. All of it's great. Brennan is able to make the show so fun, not just because he's a meticulous planner and a great storyteller, but because he respects his players and is more than willing to throw his plans out the window in order to accommodate their bullshit.
He's at 2 points.
No!
I'm gonna need him to
bless
the
dare you?
Hey, you are a sick son of a bitch.
Gonna kill that dog.
Oh my God, you're a sick son of a bitch.
He's the bad guy.
You.
I'm all the bad guys.
And obviously there's so much more that Brennan does to bring the game to life. Hell, so much more that everyone contributes to the table, that for all my gushing here, I've really only scratched the surface. But still, between all of that, I think we now have a pretty good picture of why Dimension 20 works so well. Given a cast that all play off each other well, who all have incredible improv skills, and who all bring their own unique quirks to the game, all of that's a recipe for endless hours of hilarity and drama. Emily's chaos, Siobhan's emotional way to lose hype, Zach's restraint, Allie's authenticity and luck, Brian's deft hand, and Brennan's everything all blend wonderfully to create a truly special show. And through being such an amazing show, Dimension 20 has taught me, previously a clueless dweeb, so much about the appeal of the game at its core. It's collaborative social storytelling where you and your friends go on an adventure together, but even that little blurb doesn't even come close to doing justice to it all. Sure, it's fun to go off on an adventure together, but you know what's even better? To make an adventure together. Yes, Brennan puts a lot of work in behind the scenes into creating these campaigns. Yes, your everyday dungeon master can, should, and often does use pre-written adventure modules to get their players and themselves going, which is great, but at the end of the day, the law our intrepid heroes operate by is not that of the pre-written word, but rather that of their own decisions. For all of the incredible planning Brennan does, the most hard-hitting story moments are those he creates in tandem with his players. It's not just one person telling a story, it's a group of of people working together to take each other on a ride. And it really helps all of that the whole cast get along together so well. As I hope I've thoroughly demonstrated by this point, this isn't just a group of actors putting on a show for an audience. No, this is a group of friends all constantly yes-anding each other and having a great time doing it. Their supernatural chemistry allows them to create not just great comedy, but character beats and well-constructed narrative scenes on the fly together. And as the show progresses, they only get more comfortable getting up to insane shenanigans together. And all of that, of course, makes for incredible stories and emotional roller coasters and whatnot over hours and hours and hours, but it also goes to show how Dungeons & Dragons is more than just a game where you throw dice around. It's a space that, once you and your friends are in it and working it, pushes and encourages you to experiment and interact with your fellow players in a way you might not otherwise do normally. It can allow you to explore facets of yourself and the people around you thanks to being in an environment that encourages such experimentation and self-expression. And ideally, you could grow closer with the people around you as a result. And while of course none of that is guaranteed, at the bare minimum, the game and its very nature as an act of collaborative storytelling acts as a foundation from which a group of people can get together, have a laugh, and maybe grow closer, or just experience personal growth. It encourages socialization and bonding through interactions with other players. It stimulates creativity and improvisation through the nature of its storytelling. It's just, I can't believe I've never fully fucking played this game before. This is incredible. Regardless, all of that I was able to learn thanks to the tireless efforts of Brennan and the Intrepid Heroes. That sounds like a bad name. And all of that's not even to mention the creativity Dimension 20 has inspired in the people who've watched it. Forget about this video, there's awesome fan animations and even whole fan-made albums based on this show. For real, the latest release from the Sig Fig Collective, based on the in-universe fantasy high band Sig and the Sig Figs, led by Fig herself, that album fucking slaps. And under no normal circumstances would you think that an album put together by fans in tribute to an internet-based Dungeons & Dragons show would ever slap, but lo and behold, it slaps, and it slaps hard.
Check it out on
And hell, no doubt the show has inspired many people to want to actually get into the game, myself included. If Dungeons & Dragons is a foundation for creativity, then Dimension 20 is the inspiration. I love it to pieces, and I wish all of our Intrepid heroes many more incredible adventures to come. Thanks for sitting through my rambling about a tabletop RPG show. I've had quite a hectic couple months with my channel, almost getting deleted twice and then actually getting deleted for a bit, so that wasn't fun, but this show sure helped me through some of that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget...
We all love this information.
We shake hands.
You see that she says, what family is that?
When you're here, your family. It's called being gay.